Right now, though, having a chat with Jonathan Lanham. Jonathan is an architect who's currently working on the Concordia Lutheran College Master Plan project. But for Jonathan, being a part of this project is a bit like going back. It's a trip down memory lane. Being the lead architect in designing the new Concordia Junior Campus and the Concordia Early Learning Centre is more than just the latest project to come across Jonathan's desk. It's a classic example of career serendipity. Jonathan actually attended Concordia in Year 8 before graduating in 2010 and has very fond memories of his time there. He was also involved in the school's musicals, like Pirates of Penzance and Bugsy Malone. And in fact, at one stage, most people would have thought it was a fair bet that Jonathan's future would have been in the arts. But it was actually another very passionate and compelling teacher at Concordia that introduced him to another skill which would end up shaping his life forever. Let's find out what it's like to go back to where it all began. Jonathan Lanham joins me now. Jonathan, good morning. Great to have a chat with you.
Pleasure's all mine. Very unexpected surprise.
Well, it's an interesting story, but can I ask you firstly, what were your first thoughts when you saw that your old alma mater, Concordia in Toowoomba, needed an architect for this massive project? What went through your mind?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It was just a normal working day, I suppose. I wasn't even involved in the initial, client engagement discussions and sort of that initial briefing and all of that. So the company that I work for, Elevation Architecture, was approached on a sort of a short list of potential architects that might want to work with Concordia College. Mm-hmm. So the project manager's called Hammond and Neil, and just one day I just heard my boss talking about this potential Lutheran school job. And I'm like, oh, that's my school. Oh, yeah, I reckon we got it. I didn't know anything else about it. We were halfway through the whole process, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's my school, So it was one of those things where you just like, oh, well, I'd better get onto that job, So, yeah, I've been very privileged to have been, put onto the project, and that they've backed me, they've trusted me to sort of pull through with it, I suppose.
Tell me though, this is what I'm curious about. For you, was the attraction partly because I think everyone has a dream of, they will leave school and they will go away, and then they'll have a chance to come back to their school, and 10 years later, when they've been successful in their chosen field, and in some way demonstrate what they've made of their life. Was there an element of that, or is that reading a little bit too much into it? I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't really ever stopped to think about it from that perspective. I will say this though, is that the community at Concordia, it's like, there is a very strong alumni presence, I suppose.
Yep.
So I've got other friends that I went to school with that have either, gone on to become teachers at the school or, working in some other sort of capacity around the school. So, yeah, it is kind of cool how they stay linked in.
Tell me your background with the school. What years did you attend Concordia?
2006 to 2010.
Okay. And what was that experience? So you weren't a boarder, you were just a day student, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was a day go.
Good. Is that what they called them, is it?
Yeah.
And what was that experience like for you overall?
Well, I guess as far as the school's concerned, they did a really great job. They always had really high-quality staff, good teachers, and the Christian ethic also sort of permeated throughout the culture as well. So we did chapel, Christian studies, all that sort of stuff. So as far as, the school's educational quality, it was great. Yeah.
Terrific. But it also, because I believe you went in as a lover of music. You were already playing the trombone, I believe, but the school really sort of nurtured that and gave you a path to really pursue that and perform in music. Tell me a bit about that side of things.
Yeah, so, I don't know, I'm pretty privileged in that I come from a musical family. Basically everyone plays an instrument. My grandfather played an instrument, my auntie played an instrument. So since about the age of 7, I started playing piano and then took up trombone and, really threw myself into that. So by the time I was at Concordia, I would have been playing at about, I don't know, maybe a grade 5 Amy B sort of level.
Right.
And then, I got involved with all of the bands and stuff there. Had a great relationship with the instrumental director there. I believe he's still there, Paul Edwards. Yeah, great bloke. And he headed up Jazz Ed as well, which I was involved in. That music mind and all of that, I guess, somewhat plays into, the creativity required for architecture, I suppose. That's
interesting, actually. And I want to ask you about that in a moment, in terms of how that time influenced your future career choice. And now the wheel's gone pretty much full circle with you working on this project back at your old school. But You mentioned to someone, I think, that Paul Edwards had and I quote, always pushed the envelope with the powers that be at the school and secured us a number of trips, which were fantastic experiences. Well, what do you mean push the envelope? So was he able to sort of take you away on jazz music trips that perhaps you wouldn't have gotten at other schools or something? What do you mean by that?
Oh, 100%. Like, Paul's the man. Yeah. I don't even care if he hears that. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I've known him for years and years. He's a fantastic music instructor and musician himself. He still plays in a few bands and stuff like that. Paul was able to get the school to let us to go down to Generations in Jazz from, I think it might have been 2006 or 2008 or something.
Right.
But we got a couple of trips down. So that's Generations in Jazz, which was headed up by James Morrison, right? That's
right. Yeah.
Yeah, his event down there.
Yep.
So it was only because of Paul, really, I suppose, and Wendy Evans as well, that we had those opportunities brought to us. But, I mean, as far as all of the school's music trips and things that we had during that period, Paul was very much a driving force.
Tell me about the Formula One challenge, and I'm particularly interested in this because I think there was a period of maybe a few years straight, and I'm not sure if Concordia still goes in this challenge now or even if the Formula One challenge is still a thing, but I think your year of going in, or your couple of years of going into this with the Concordia team, coincided with my arrival in town and going to do some stories on that. But tell me how you got involved in this sort of extracurricular activity and what influence that had on you, the Formula One challenge.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm a bit of a rev head myself, so there's step number one.
It's in the blood, is it?
It definitely is in the blood. Second of all, and just before I get to graphics and Jason and all of that, second of all, I come from a family of people who are very hands-on, always building things. So my father's a pattern maker who used to work at Toowoomba Foundry.
Oh, right, okay.
So, as a little kid, you get to go to Dad's work and walk, through the foundry and, the pattern shop and, see him, modelling stuff in SolidWorks and, they had some real whiz-bang stuff. So people probably don't know too much about Toowoomba Foundry, but, they were world-class building products for, Kenworth, Mack, Volvo, Performance V8 racing heads, like cylinder heads, all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
So, my dad's influence as far as, being a CAD operator, as a designer, as, someone who likes to make things, So I guess, that has a big influence on me as well. So then, if you take that sort of background and then you throw it into the context of Concordia, here's Jason Smith, this bustling, I don't know how to say, very engaged, very passionate teacher, and the thing is about this whole in-schools F1 thing is that it wasn't just us learning, the ins and outs of this whole process, but it was actually Jason learning alongside us and, he was just amazed, with the speed at which, my cohort was sort of picking things up, and he's just trying to stay, a step ahead and get all of the gear together. So we had specialist training from I think it was Central Innovation. Central Innovation. They brought instructors up to the school to teach us a solid modelling program called CATIA.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so CATIA is the one that they use for sort of aeronautical sort of engineering stuff. So, they do cars, boats, planes, all that sort of free-form modelling stuff, in 3D space.
So they taught you the fundamentals of aerodynamics and shape and how that influences speed, but then you guys, is it fair to say you sort of took those basic concepts and ran with them, got experimental sort of?
100%. That's the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Is they hand you a brief, say these are the rules, right? And then they teach you how to use this software, so now you know how to build your car, right?
Yep.
And then you got to apply all of these various factors to be able to punch out a car out the other end, right? Like our car wasn't anything, particularly flash. I mean, we thought it was pretty flash at the time. It had a pretty sick paint job.
And that made it go faster.
Yeah, I think we willed it to go faster. Me and my mates and I think, what do we call our team? It was like Sub-Zero or something.
Right. Okay.
Named after the Top Gear cool wall, because that was all the go back then, and sort of you could almost quote Jeremy Clarkson offhand,
And so, is it fair to say that whole experience, though, was what inadvertently or indirectly led to your interest in design and subsequently architecture? Did it all start with that project, or had those seeds been planted prior to that?
I think in my case, probably, a significant contributing factor. But again, my circumstance is pretty individual. I mean, not everyone can say their dad worked at a foundry, or that they've got all of this sort of engineering background or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it was a case of, just general attributes. I loved art, loved music, I loved drawing, I loved, even English for an aspect, and there's a lot of English that you have to be able to do to get through university as well.
Yeah, Jonathan Lanham talking about being back at Concordia as one of the lead architects in their current project of moving the primary schools onto the campus of Concordia College, and how that school, back when he was a student there, planted the seeds for what would be his future career. So it really is like the wheel turning full circle there. It's a interesting story, and he feels in a very privileged position. Jonathan Lanham there.